The door flung open, and Madame stormed in, her eyes blazing with fury. Why are you screaming like a mad dog? Please, ma, I want to go. I swear I won't tell anyone. Just let me leave. I'm begging you in the name of God or anything that you serve. Go where? She sneered. Didn't they tell you? You are mine now. My property. My investment. I paid 700,000 naira to have you delivered here. You think I'll just let that go? Never. You will work for me and I will get my money back with profit. The entrance bell at St. Dominic's orphanage let out a sharp jingle that echoed through the quiet stone hallways. Sister Gertrude, seated at her cluttered desk with her reading glasses perched on the edge of her nose, looked up from the weekly expense record she had been poring over. She glanced at the wall clock above the wooden door. It was 11:30 p.m. She frowned. Who could possibly be at the door at this hour? She muttered, rubbing her temple. It was a cold Sunday night and the orphanage grounds had long since gone silent. She tried to ignore the sound and return to her paperwork. Perhaps it was just the wind or a child playing tricks. But then the bell rang again, and again, and again, each jingle more urgent than the last. With a weary sigh, she rose from her chair and made her way through the dimly lit corridor. As she reached the main entrance, she paused for a second to gather herself. Then she pulled the heavy wooden door open. There was no one there. She stepped outside and looked around. To the left, nothing. To the right, still nothing. Then, just as she was about to retreat inside, something caught her eye. She looked down. There at her feet was a small wicker basket barely larger than a loaf of bread. Wrapped in layers of soft white swaddling cloth, a baby girl slept soundly, her tiny chest rising and falling with quiet breaths. The child's skin was smooth, her cheeks round and pink from the cold. Thick curly black hair peeked out from beneath the blanket, and a delicate gold bracelet glimmered on her right wrist. Sister Gertrude gasped softly and looked around again, heart thudding. But the night remained still. Whoever had left the baby had vanished without a trace. This wasn't the first time something like this had happened, but it never stopped surprising them. With gentle hands, she lifted the basket, cradling the infant close to her chest. "Oh, little one," she whispered, "what happened to you?" She carried the baby inside, locking the door behind her. When morning came, they would all sit to decide what happens to the child. By sunrise, the small community of Reverend Sisters, along with Father Benedict, gathered in the chapel office to discuss the child. There was no note, no document, no hint of who she was or where she came from. Only that tiny gold bracelet. "We must take her in," Father Benedict declared, "and God willing, she will find a home." Since no one knew her name, Sister Gertrude suggested they named her Maria Goretti, after the young saint known for her innocence and strength. The name felt right. As the years passed, Maria Goretti, now simply called Maria by everyone, grew up within the warm walls of the orphanage. She learned to pray, to sing, to laugh. The sisters taught her to read, to cook, and to tend to the garden. She was never adopted as a baby. But then, as she grew older, people often came by asking after her. She had a certain brightness in her eyes, a charm that drew people in. One day, a young couple walked into the orphanage. They were warm, well dressed. They had 7 boys, so they said. 7, but not a single girl. After years of trying, they had decided to adopt. And the moment they saw Maria, their hearts softened. She, on the other hand, was torn. The orphanage was all she had ever known. It was her home, her family, her safe haven. She had never wanted to leave the orphanage, but something about this family seemed to draw her in. The idea of being part of an already made family, to have parents to call her own, to be someone's daughter and also ready-made brothers, that lit a spark in her. And so with a mix of excitement and uncertainty, Maria agreed to go with them. She did not know what the future would hold, but she carried with her the hope that maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something beautiful for her. Maria was just 6 years old when she packed her few belongings into a small pink bag and left the only home she had ever known, the quiet walls of St. Dominic's orphanage, for the bright, unfamiliar world of Mr. and Mrs. Ayomiko. From the moment she stepped into their spacious home, it felt like she had walked into a dream. Her new parents were wealthy. They adored her. They showered her with gifts, called her their precious princess, and told everyone who cared to listen that she was the answer to their prayers. Mrs. Ayomiko braided her hair with colorful beads, and Mr. Ayomiko always brought her something special whenever he returned home from work or a long trip. Her new brothers, 7 of them, were over the moon to have a sister. They would fuss over her. They would fight over who would walk her to school, and even allowed her to boss them around from time to time. They called her our little queen, and she believed them. Maria was happier than she had ever been. She went to a good school, wore beautiful clothes that spilled out of her wardrobe, and ate meals she once only dreamed about. Her laughter filled the house like music, and every night she whispered prayer of thanks to God, believing she had finally found her forever family. Then, one morning, Mrs. Ayomiko walked out of the bathroom, holding a pregnancy test with trembling hands. She was pregnant again. Unlike the other times, there was no glow of excitement on her face, no happy dancing. In fact, she looked upset. She was afraid that it would be a boy as usual. She decided to terminate the pregnancy, but her husband insisted that they had the child no matter what. And she carried the pregnancy. When the time came, Mrs. Ayomiko was delivered of her babies. Yes, babies. Not one, but 2 babies. Twin girls. The Ayomikos were stunned, overjoyed even. Their prayers had been answered double-fold. The hospital room filled with tears and laughter. Mr. Ayomiko called them his miracles. His wife stared at her newborn daughters as if they were made of stars. For the first time in a long time, she smiled. But for Maria, that day marked the beginning of a quiet heartbreak. Suddenly, she was no longer the shining star of the family. The dresses, the attention, the pet names, they all disappeared. Everything shifted to the twins. Mrs. Ayomiko would snap at her at the slightest provocation, and most times took the spare the rod and spoiled the child a little too seriously. Even Mr. Ayomiko, once her biggest fan, grew distant. He too diverted all his attention to his twin daughters. It was like she never existed. One day, the couple decided that since they now had their own girls, they should return Maria to the orphanage. And they did just that, as if she were a book borrowed from the library or a borrowed toy they had grown tired of. They packed her things neatly, told her to be a good girl. "I'm sure a nice family will come for you very soon," they said. And just like that, they drove her back to St. Dominic's orphanage. The Reverend sisters were stunned. "But why?" Sister Gertrude asked, horrified. "Has she done something wrong? You've had her for over 5 years." She's no longer needed," Mr. Ayomikun said with a gentle smile, as if he were returning an umbrella. "The Lord has now blessed us with our own daughters." The sisters could hardly believe it. Maria stood there, silent and still, clutching her pink bag and the soft teddy bear her youngest brother had secretly stuffed into her backpack. That night, back in the room, where she had once learned to sleep alone, Maria cried so hard, her tiny chest ached. The pain was too big for words. It sat in her throat like a stone. The betrayal, the rejection, it was too much. For days, she barely spoke. She refused to eat, refused to play. When the sisters came to comfort her, she just shook her head. She had no more tears left. Curled up on her bed, Maria reached into her pocket and pulled out the only thing she had ever owned that truly belonged to her, a delicate gold bracelet, the same one she had been found with as a baby. She held it in her palm, staring at its tiny links. "Why doesn't anyone want me?" she whispered into the darkness. She wondered if somewhere out there her real mother was still alive, if she ever thought about the baby she left behind. Did she even love her? Or had she been just like the Ayomikuns, someone who held her for a while and then let her go when she was no longer needed? That night, Maria made a quiet vow. She would never leave the orphanage again. Never. Not for anyone. Not even for the promise of a home. Because promises, she had learned, could be broken. But pain, the pain stayed. The years rolled by like pages in a book, and Maria blossomed into a striking young woman. Her soft brown eyes held quiet strength. Her smile was rare, but radiant, and her dark hair was like silk. Yet beneath the beauty was a guarded heart, one that had built high, invisible walls. True to the vow she made as a little girl, Maria refused to let herself be adopted. Many came, families who smiled too brightly and spoke of new beginnings, couples who offered promises of love, of comfort, even a better life. But Maria shook her head every single time. She had learned the hard way that love could be temporary, that even the kindest voices could turn cold. Now she was 18, and the world had thrown her another challenge, one that would change her life forever. That day, Sister Gertrude called her into her office and asked her to sit. "Maria," she began, "you are no longer our legal responsibility," she said. "According to the law, you are now an adult, and the orphanage cannot be responsible for you anymore." Maria felt the words hit her like a wave. "But where do I go?" she whispered, her voice cracking. "This is the only home I've ever known. I have no one out there." The old nun sighed, her eyes heavy. "We wish we could do more for you, Maria. Thank God you finished your secondary school, and we've given you a skill. You are a talented tailor, Maria. Now it's time to find your own path. outside the walls of this orphanage. Maria stared at the floor, holding back tears. The polished tiles blurred as her vision swam. She had always known this day would come. She had seen many go too. But she hadn't thought it would come so soon or feel so much like standing at the edge of a cliff with no wings to fly. There's still hope, Sister Gertrude added. We will announce your situation in church this Sunday. Perhaps someone will step forward to help you. Maybe sponsor your education or offer a job. That Sunday after Mass, an announcement was made to the congregation. And by the end of the service, a woman came knocking at the orphanage gates. Her name was Madame Teresa. She was plump and pleasant, dressed in flowing Ankara fabric with gold bangles that jingled when she moved. Her smile lit up her round face as she introduced herself. I own a big fashion store, she said proudly. We specialize in classy African wares, agbadas, bubus, lace, gowns, you name it. I heard the announcement and I came straight away. I have a job offer for Maria. A job offer? Maria's heart skipped. She'll be making clothes in my store, Madame Teresa continued. She already has tailoring skills, doesn't she? I'll pay her 40,000 naira a month to start, plus feeding and accommodation. And as time goes on, there will surely be increment. It sounded too good to be true. The sisters clapped with joy. Maria blinked, dazed by how quickly her fortune had changed. A real job, a place to stay, plus a salary. She nodded quickly, a smile forming on her lips. Yes, she said. Yes, I'll go. The orphanage threw a farewell party in her honor. The younger children wept and hugged her. The sisters prayed over her and gave her a small envelope with a few naira and a rosary. Go and shine, child, Sister Gertrude whispered, pressing a kiss to her forehead. A few days later, Madame Teresa returned, and this time, Maria went back with her. Her new life was beginning, but it wasn't what she expected. They did not drive to a store. In fact, they did not stop anywhere in Lagos. Instead, they drove for hours, long winding roads, blurred past the windows. Then came bush paths, villages, toll gates. The city began to disappear in the rearview mirror, replaced by dense forests and strange signs. Maria grew uneasy. Ma, please, where exactly are we going? She asked politely, trying to hide the fear creeping into her voice. Madame Teresa flashed a sweet, calm smile. Just relax, my dear. I have a surprise for you. You are going to love it. Maria tried to smile back, but her heart beat faster. Her fingers tightened around her bag. Something did not feel right. Hours later, they arrived. It was a small rundown neighborhood in Warri. The road was untarred and littered with potholes. Shabby houses lined the streets like forgotten memories. Stray dogs barked from corners, and the air smelled of still water and smoke. The car finally rolled to a stop in front of an old crumbling two-story building. It had no fence, no security, just walls that screeched from rust. From the outside, it looked abandoned, almost forgotten by time. A perfect disguise for what actually went on inside. The moment Maria and Madame Teresa stepped inside, the place came alive like a hive. Music thumped softly from a distant speaker. The hallway smelled of cheap perfume and cigarette smoke. Girls, Some no older than Maria sauntered past in high heels and barely their clothes. Laughter echoed from behind closed doors, the kind of laughter that did not reach the eyes. The air felt heavy, like it was soaked. Maria's heart sank. She tugged at Madame Teresa's sleeve. "Ma, where are we? I don't like this place." But the woman just smiled. "Don't worry, dear. I won't be long. I just came to see an old friend. Wait here by the door." Maria sat on a plastic chair near the entrance, her palms sweating, her pulse racing. She kept her bag clutched tightly on her lap and looked around nervously, flinching whenever someone walked by. Moments later, a lady in a short red dress, her lips painted and her eyelashes thick, strolled to where she sat. "Madame, they call you," she said. Maria stood up, expecting to see Madame Teresa again. But as she followed the woman down a dimly lit corridor, unease crept into her bones. The room they entered was richly furnished compared to the rest of the house. A velvet chair sat behind a wide table, and in it was a woman Maria had never seen before. She was young, maybe in her early 30s, with flawless skin, long eyelashes, and a commanding presence. She looked like someone used to giving orders and getting her way. This was the madame. The woman raised a perfectly shaped brow and said, "Turn around." Confused, Maria slowly turned in a circle. The madame nodded in approval. "Good," she said simply, then snapped her fingers at the woman beside her. "Take her to her room. Clean her up. We have a special client coming in tonight." Before Maria could say a word, she was yanked out of the room and dragged down another hallway. The moment they entered a small room with a narrow bed, the door slammed shut and locked behind her. Maria's chest tightened. It all began to click in her head. She wasn't there to sew clothes. This was no fashion store. She had been lured. She had been deceived. "No, no, please," she cried out, banging on the door with her fists. "Let me out, please, I beg you." The door flung open, and Madame stomped in, her eyes blazing with fury. "Why are you screaming like a mad dog?" Maria dropped to her knees, shaking like a leaf. Please, please, ma, I want to go. I swear I won't tell anyone. Just let me leave. I'm begging you in the name of God or anything that you serve." The woman laughed loud and long. "Go where?" she sneered. "Didn't they tell you? You are mine now. My property, my investment. I paid 700,000 naira to have you delivered here. You think I'll just let that go? Never. You will work for me and I will get my money back with profit." Maria's vision blurred with tears. She couldn't breathe. This was a nightmare. "Now, stop wasting time," the madam snapped. "Get cleaned up. A special client is on his way. He likes them fresh." A girl came in and began dressing Maria like a doll. She powdered her face, forced her into tight clothes, brushed out her hair. Maria barely moved. She was numb with fear. Before the client arrived, she was taken to a small separate room where burning candles and a chalk-drawn circle on the floor. There she was made to kneel. A woman with bleached skin and cold eyes began chanting, then handed Maria a cup of something bitter. "Repeat after me," the woman said. "If I run away, If I steal, if I disobey, may madness follow me all the days of my life." Maria's lips trembled as she repeated the words. Her heart was pounding, but she had no choice. Later that night, the special client did arrive. A pot-bellied man in his 50s, reeking of alcohol and expensive cologne. He stepped into the room, his eyes lit up when he saw her. Maria froze. She couldn't do it. No matter how afraid she was, she couldn't go through with it. When he came closer, she saw a glass bottle beside the bed and snatched it up, holding it like a weapon. "Don't come near me," she screamed. "If you come near me, I will stab you with this." The man was furious. He cursed and backed away, shouting for someone to get him out. Madame was livid. "You stupid little brat. Do you know how much money you've made me lose?" she yelled, slapping Maria hard across the face as she stormed into the room. "That is 100,000 naira gone. That is 100,000 naira you owe me. And don't think you will live here for free. Light, water, food, everything will be deducted from your earnings. So you better get up and start working." Before Maria could even say anything, two rough-looking men stormed in. They didn't speak. They beat her until her screams faded into sobs. When they were done, she lay on the floor, bruised, bleeding, broken. That night, Maria cried like never before. Every part of her body ached. But what hurt the most was her heart. This wasn't how her life was supposed to be. How had things turned out this way? Maybe she was truly cursed. Maybe she had been born to be unwanted. Now she was trapped, completely and utterly trapped. Just like that, Maria became one of Madame Titi's girls. Madame Titi was powerful, feared, and deeply connected. Her presence filled every room she entered. She was always well dressed, dripping in gold jewelry, her voice like thunder when she spoke. Madame Titi used to be married once upon a time to a wealthy businessman. But after 5 long childless years, her husband brought in another woman, one who quickly took over everything: his heart, his home, his attention, and bore him children. Madame Titi had refused to stay and watch herself fade into the background. She packed her bags, walked away with her pride intact, and returned to the same streets she had once begged to escape from. But this time, she came back with a plan. With the right connections, she started a business, supplying young, beautiful girls to rich men. Some of the girls came willingly, searching for glamour and quick money. Others, like Maria, were tricked and trapped. Madame Titi took 70% of whatever the men paid. The girls got 30. From there, with time, Madame Titi built an empire. She bought the house they now lived in, a building that buzzed with activity day and night. The upstairs were small rooms where the girls were lodged, and downstairs was her office, a place where deals were made. She now had over 50 girls under her thumb. Most of them were loyal, and others were broken, but they all answered to her. Despite her strong face and fearsome tone, Madame Titi was not as tough on the inside as she pretended to be. There were nights when she would lock herself in her room and cry, haunted by memories she couldn't erase. Among all the sins she had committed, one haunted her most. A choice she had made many years ago, one that still clawed at her soul. No matter how many diamonds she wore or how much money she stacked, that single regret followed her. Meanwhile, Maria began her life in this strange, twisted world. At first, every night felt like a punishment. She felt dirty, ashamed, and angry. But with time, she learned to shut off her feelings. She trained herself to smile, to act, and soon the pain numbed itself. She became one of the most requested girls in the house. Men adored her innocence, her soft voice, her graceful movements. Many of them tipped her generously, and she began to make a little extra money, more than some of the others. From her 30%, she was made to pay for every little thing: her bed, the water she drank, even the light she used. Every month, deductions came. Maria often stared at her tiny envelope of earnings and thought bitterly that this was just modern-day slavery in disguise. But when she looked around, none of the other girls complained. Some were even proud of the lifestyle. They had given up hope of anything better. And so Maria kept quiet too. Life continued for her this way until one quiet morning. That day, Maria sat on her bed in her room, staring blankly at the wall. Her body had been sending her subtle signals: nausea in the mornings, fatigue that clung to her bones, and a strange tightness around her belly. But now, the truth hit her with the force of a moving truck. She had missed her period for the second month in a row. She knew for sure that she was pregnant. "No, it can't be," she said, too afraid to believe it. But it was. The life growing inside her was real. And suddenly, the weight of everything she had been through came crashing down on her. Maria collapsed to the floor and wept until her throat ached. She wept for the child who would be born into chaos, for her stolen youth, for the sins she never truly chose. "I must be cursed," she whispered to herself. She thought that this was God's way of punishing her. But after the tears dried on her cheeks, a strange calm settled over her. She touched her belly again. "You did not ask to be here," she murmured, "but I won't throw you away. You are a part of me now, and you are all I have." With a newfound determination, she approached Madame Titi later that day, her heart pounding like a drum. "Madame," she said quietly, "I need to speak with you. I'm pregnant," she blurted out. Madame Titi's eyes narrowed. She set down her glass and rose slowly from her chair. "Pregnant?" she echoed. "And so? You will not be the first to get pregnant here now. You know what to do." Maria stood her ground even as her knees quivered. "I want to keep the baby. I was just hoping you could give me time off, just until I give birth. I promise I will work twice as hard after that." There was silence. Then Madame Titi let out a loud laugh. "You think say I opened this place for charity? That I should just allow you to rest for 9 months while I sit here watching my money fly away? You never even make me my profits and you dey talk belle. In fact, I never even see the money where I use buy you, and you are talking about belle." Maria blinked back the tears that stung her eyes. If you want to keep the baby, fine. But you will still work. You hear me? Some men even like it like that. Then they pay double. So congratulations, your price just went up. Maria said nothing. She turned and walked back to her room, the laughter of Madame Titi still ringing in her ears. That night, curled up in her bed, she thought of ending everything. The pain, the shame, the fear. But the thought of the small life which was gradually growing inside her was all that kept her going. And so she continued working, even with the child growing steadily inside her. To her surprise and disgust, many of the clients were thrilled. They paid extra to be with her, as though her pregnancy made her more exotic or more desirable. Madame Titi, ever the businesswoman, raised Maria's price without a second thought. Maria, exhausted and aching, pressed on. She worked until her feet swelled and her back screamed and her stomach swelled with the life that was growing inside her. No one offered her mercy, not even Madame Titi, who only cared for the figures on her ledger. Then, one cold evening, Maria went into labor. The midwives came. After hours of screaming and pushing, Maria gave birth to a baby girl, red-faced and wailing loudly into the night. The child was strong, but small, her tiny fists clenched. Maria held her close, tears of joy streaming down her cheeks. Mona Chimsu, she whispered, kissing her daughter's forehead. My God is with me. The other girls celebrated with her. Some brought her warm water and small gifts. They knew how rare joy was in a place like that, and for a brief moment the house felt a little softer. But not Madame Titi. She stood at the door, arms crossed, eyes unreadable. The sight of Maria holding her newborn stirred something deep inside her, something she had tried hard to bury. The image reminded her of a different time, a different girl, the same mistake. For the first time, her heart melted. She allowed Maria 4 weeks to rest and recover. After that, she warned, you must go back to work. No excuses. Those 4 weeks were the hardest of Maria's life. She had no idea how to be a mother. She had no one to guide her. Sleepless nights rolled into weary mornings. Mona cried often, and Maria sometimes cried with her. But little by little, she learned. She figured out how to nurse, how to calm her baby with a soft lullaby, how to rock her until her eyes fluttered shut. But soon, another problem arose. How would she work while caring for Mona? One of the girls told her about Mama Shewa, an elderly woman who ran a small daycare nearby. She looked after children from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. for a small fee. It was far from ideal, but it was the only choice she had. As soon as her 4 weeks ended, Maria went and registered her baby at Mama Shewa's place. And so she dropped her off every morning and picked her up in the evening. She worked during the day, then again at night. Mona, thankfully, was a heavy sleeper. Once she closed her eyes, she wouldn't stir until morning. That gave Maria time to make enough money to feed them both. One morning, Madame Titi called her into her posh office. I have a special client coming later today, she said. He wants my best girl, and I thought about you. He has a lot of money and he's willing to pay handsomely to spend time with you. Do you think you can handle him? Maria nodded her head. She could use the extra money. Very good, Madame said. Get ready. He'll be here by 4 p.m. That was how Maria met Dakpo. He was the special client. Initially, Maria had expected a pot-bellied man, but she was surprised to see a young man in his late 30s. He was handsome too. Maria was all set to work, but surprisingly, all this man wanted was to talk. Maria found it odd. So, Oga, you paid all this money just to talk? Dakpo nodded. Ha! Maria exclaimed. But you could have easily picked one lady from the roadside now and talked to her since you want gist. Dakpo shook his head. They would always expect more and want to pin themselves on me. I don't have energy for drama, he said calmly. They both laughed. And truthfully, Maria felt some sort of relief. For the first time since she got here, a man did not want her to please him. They talked for hours, and she learned a lot of things about him. Dakpo had lost his entire family, a wife and 2 children to a plane crash 5 years ago. That had been the worst day of his life, and he had been unable to recover from the loss all those years and had thrown himself into his work. His friends and family had become so worried about him and urged him to go out more often and maybe go on several dates. He had tried dating, but the ladies he met never cared to listen. They thought he was broken and did not want to be saddled with a broken man. They wanted serious relationships. But all he wanted was someone whom he could talk to, someone that would really listen to him. He hated the idea of a therapist. He thought they were people with problems who thought they could solve other people's problems. And so, his friends had told him about Madame Titi's place. They suggested that maybe if he found a girl to treat him right and handle him well, then maybe it could help him remember and recover fast, know again what it felt like to be a man. But as soon as I stepped into this room, Dakpo said, I changed my mind. Maria listened attentively as he spoke. She felt his pain. She of all people knew how it felt to be alone. I'm really sorry you had to go through all of this. I can imagine how hard it is to lose a loved one and feel so alone. But you must understand that some things are beyond our control and we must keep pushing no matter what. I'm sure your wife and kid would want you to leave and be happy. Dakpo looked at her. You sound like someone who has known pain. Tell me, Maria, have you ever lost someone you loved? Maria looked down at her hands. This is not about me right now. My life is very, very complicated. She stood up. It was really good talking to you, Mr. Dakpo, but our session is over. I have other clients to attend to. Dakpo knew it was his cue to leave, but before that, he tipped her generously and thanked her for really listening to him. Then he left. That night, when Madame Titi handed her the usual 30% cut, Maria's eyes widened at the amount. It was the highest she had ever earned from a single client, and she hadn't even touched him. Later that night, Dakpo lay in his king-size bed, but his mind was elsewhere. He was thinking about his encounter with Maria that day. It did not go as planned, but it was worth every penny he had paid. But then, he could not ignore the pain he saw in her eyes. He could swear that that young woman had known her own fair share of pain, and it should have not been his business. But he wanted to know her story. The next day at 4 p.m., he found himself standing again inside Madame Titi's place. Maria was surprised to see him again. "You are here. You never talk finish. You still want to talk, or do you want some action this time?" Dako smiled and made himself comfortable on the chair beside the bed. "I enjoyed our session yesterday. It really helped me get things off my chest, and I actually felt better." Maria folded her hand across her chest. So, what do you want now?" "I want to talk with my new friend." Maria smiled in her head. The word friend sounded foreign to her. "So, what do you want to talk about today?" "You," he said simply. She was not expecting that. "Me? Why would you want to talk about me? I mean, why would you pay all that money to talk about me?" "You said your life was very complicated yesterday. I could not help but wonder, what could make you speak with so much pain? I saw it in your eyes yesterday and I could not stop thinking about it. I figured that you might also need someone to talk to. And here I am. I don't need anyone. I'm fine on my own," she shot back defensively. Dako laughed. "I don't even doubt that you are doing great on your own. I mean, you must make a lot of money here daily." Her ears rang. "How dare you judge me? You don't know me or even half of what I've been through. You want to talk about me? Fine. I was abandoned by my mother, whom I have never known, when I was barely 2 months old in an orphanage, inside a basket, adopted at 6 years old, and returned 5 years later like a borrowed item because my adopted parents got their own biological daughter and decided they wanted me no more. I turned 18 and the orphanage decided I was too old to be there. It was time to leave and find my own way. They kicked me out." Tears filled her eyes and her voice became calm. "This woman called Madame Teresa shows up from church, says she owns a big fashion store. She offered me a job with a reasonable pay and accommodation. I thought it was the break I needed, and so I took it. But she brought me here instead. I later learned that she had sold me to Madame for 700,000 naira. Now I am her property, and she does with us all as she pleases." Dako was stunned. "Have you ever considered living here?" Maria laughed. "Live where? Every one of us here is bound by an oath. You run away or steal, and the repercussion will be madness. Besides, if I leave now, where will I go? I have a daughter to take care of now. This now is even more complicated." Dako was slightly taken aback. "You have a daughter? How?" "A torn condom, maybe, but I did get pregnant. Madame Titi wanted me to get rid of it, but I refused. She insisted I must continue to work even though I was pregnant, and I did work until the day I gave birth." Dako rubbed his hand on his face. "I can't believe that you have had to go through all these on your own. I can't even believe that something like this goes on in this place. What if I said I could help you? How? Madam Titi has connections. Even if you call the police, she'll get off easily. I'm very sure of that. Dapo smiled. Don't worry. I have my connections too. Besides, I'm a lawyer. By the time Dapo left, Maria was filled with a new kind of hope. Maybe, just maybe, there would be a light at the end of the tunnel for her. The next day, Dapo returned, but with a different plan. He came specifically to see Madam Titi. She was very happy to see him, for at that moment he was her highest paying client, even though she had no idea what went on behind those doors. It was of no concern to her. I want her, Dapo said without preamble. Madam Titi smiled. Maria, she's all yours to enjoy. I see she's taking good care of you. No, you must be mistaken. I want to buy her from you. How much will it cost? Madam Titi frowned. What do you mean buy her? I cannot sell Maria. She's not for sale. She's one of my best girls. And soon, her daughter will be grown enough to understand and play the game. It will be my loss to let go of her. I'll pay 50 million. Madam Titi's eyes widened. The guy was serious, she thought to herself. 60 million, including the child. Dapo was burning with anger, but he managed to hide it. The woman was indeed evil. Done, he said. I'll have the money transferred to you by tomorrow morning. Dapo walked out of her office, feeling victorious. Madam Titi had no idea what was coming to her, for pinned to his jacket was a very tiny camera that looked like a button, and it had captured her face as well as their conversation. And come tomorrow, her face will be all over the news channels and social media. He would make sure of it. The next morning started like every other day for the girls. But it was not so for Madam Titi. Her phone beeped, waking her up from her beauty sleep. Have you seen the news? Came the urgent voice at the other end. It was one of her business associates. Seen the news? Why? You are all over the news, Titi. There is trouble. Madam Titi quickly ended the call and switched on her big smart TV. To her shock, her face was indeed on different news channels. Not just her face, a video of her. She picked her phone and went straight to social media. It was worse over there. Madam Titi started to panic. She knew immediately that she had been set up. Anger boiled inside her. She got dressed with the speed of lightning and drove like a mad woman. Where is that ungrateful brat? She thundered as she marched into the brothel. The girls rushed out of their rooms to see what was making their madam furious. Where is she? She barked as she flung Maria's door open with a kick. Maria, who was feeding her baby, rose immediately from the bed. Good morning, Madam Titi. Madam walked straight to her and slapped her hard across the face. You dare to double-cross me? After all that I've done for you, you think you can bring me down? Bring down everything I've worked so hard to build? Maria was completely stunned. I have no idea what you are talking about, Ma. You don't? You don't? You and that your boyfriend think you can do this and go scot-free? I will show you what I'm made of. Nuru! Cobra! Her two hefty machineries stepped into the room, their whips ready. "Oh yeah, treat her. Rearrange her now," she ordered. The men flogged Maria mercilessly as she begged. "Stop," Madam Titi ordered again when she felt they had given her enough. "Now tell me, Maria, what plans have you and that man made?" Maria was bruised and in tears, but she knew exactly what Madam Titi was talking about. "I don't know anything. He said he could help me, but that was all, I swear. I did not know anything." Madam Titi was not buying it. "Search this room. I'm sure there's a camera somewhere." They started ransacking the whole room, upturning everything. Madam Titi opened Maria's bedside drawer and froze. Her hands trembled as she picked up the small gold bracelet that night many years ago came flooding back. She could not breathe. Where did you get this from?" she stammered. "It was on my hand when the sisters at the orphanage found me," Maria replied, still nursing her pain. Tears filled Madam Titi's eyes. "You were found wearing this? You were brought from the orphanage?" Maria became cautious. She nodded. Madam Titi fell to the ground and screamed. "No! This cannot be. What have I done to myself? Oh God!" "What's going on, madam?" Maria asked, almost scared of what she was about to hear. "All I wanted to do was to protect my child. Shield you from this kind of life. I was young and not prepared for the responsibilities of caring for a child. That was why I had to take you there. How come you are here?" "Wait," Maria interrupted. "Are you saying that you are my mother? That you were the one who bore me and dropped me at the orphanage?" Madam Titi nodded solemnly, and Maria burst into a bitter laugh. "You wanted to shield me from this kind of life, yet here I am, deceived, lured and bought by you for 700,000 naira. I did not know, Maria. I did not know. If I had known, what would have happened?" Maria interrupted again. "What difference would it make? You wanted to protect your own child and ruin other people's own? You never even cared about me. You never loved your child because not once did you show up at the orphanage to check up on the child you abandoned. You could not even give her a name." Madam Titi could not hold back her tears. Life had indeed played a huge trick on her. She cried so hard. "I'm sorry, my child. Don't call me your child. I am not and will never be. I always wondered what my mother would be like. Now that I know, I feel so disgusted. I wish I never knew. You are an heartless woman, and I hope that one day you pay for all the things that you've done to me and all these innocent girls." Just then, sirens started blaring outside. Armed police officers trooped inside the building. Madam Titi knew she had nowhere to hide, and truthfully, she did not even have the power to run. Not after what she had just discovered. She was handcuffed and taken away in the police van. Some of the girls, the ones fast enough, took their money and ran, while the others that were not as fast were also rounded up. Maria clutched her baby in her arms like her life depended on it. As she stepped out of the building, she sighted Agba coming towards her. She was so relieved that she went into his arms. "Thank you for saving us." "It's nothing," Agba responded. "You and these girls here deserve a better life." "She was my mother," Maria blurted out. "What? How?" She told him about their encounter just before the police arrived. He hugged her again. "I'm so sorry, Maria. I'm sure you were disappointed, but then you never have to wonder anymore." He led them to his car. "I have a surprise for you." She followed him. That day marked a new beginning for Maria, her daughter, Agba, and of course, Madam Titi. Maria went back to a fashion school and advanced her skills, fully sponsored by Agba, who not only became her friend and helper, but also her strongest support system, always pushing her to do better and encouraging her when she doubted herself, and also being there for her daughter like she were his own. In less than 6 months, she had graduated from fashion school, and Agba had her surprise gift waiting, a fully equipped fashion store. Maria was filled with so much joy that she could not stop her tears from flowing. She could not believe how her life had just miraculously turned around. Indeed, God makes everything beautiful in His own time. Agba and Maria's relationship became stronger, leading them both to places they never thought was possible for them again. Together they helped each other's hearts heal and began a beautiful journey of their own. As for Madam Titi, she was found guilty of human trafficking, sex trafficking, and many other charges. She was forced to mention all of her accomplices, including Madam Teresa, and they were all made to face the law, locked up behind bars, where they would be spending the next 50 years of their lives. Hey lovers! Thank you for listening to this story. If you are new here, welcome to our community. I hope you enjoyed listening to this story as much as I enjoyed creating it. If you have not done so already, please hit the subscribe button, and to support the growth of our community, give this video a big thumbs up. If you know someone who would enjoy a story like this, do not hesitate to share. Don't forget to leave a comment down below. Remember, like, share, drop a comment, and subscribe. I'll take my leave now, but I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.